Hey everybody, this is Andrew Brown and welcome to the AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp, where I'm making a supplementary video all around Codespaces. So Github Codespaces is the alternative to Gitpod when you run out of credits. To say I know GitHub Codespaces very well would be far from the truth. I have used it in the past multiple times, but how to configure it, I'm not exactly sure, but we'll figure that out in this video because that is the purpose of it, is to help folks that have to use GitHub Codespaces. So I'm in my repository. I'm going to switch over to my latest branch, which would be branch 2 again. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of launching Gitpod, launch Codespaces and see if we can configure the things that are missing that are in our Gitpod YAML so that folks that are at this stage are able to learn how to configure it and things like that. So as we can see, I don't see any Codespaces. There was one down below here. Sometimes it just says like launch or something, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new Codespace for week 2 again. And so this will launch an environment for us. And so while we're waiting here, the question is, how do we configure Codespaces to work? Now we can go to the documentation. Sometimes ChatGPT or these AI-assisted applications are great to kind of get a feeling of what needs to be done. So I'm going to do this because, again, I don't really use it too much, so I'd like to just see an example, and it doesn't matter if it's wrong, we will go and find out what the right answer is. So configure GitHub Codespaces to install the AWS CLI. And that's something that we want to do. Okay, so we'll look at the output, and it's giving me instructions for installing AWS CLI, but I'm looking for GitHub Codespaces. That is not, okay, that's not what I want. So write a configuration file, I know it's called dev containers. Configuration file for GitHub Codespaces to install the AWS CLI. Great. So what do we have here? We have, again, I don't know anything about dev containers, but I'm sure I can figure it out very easily. Up here, we have an image. So it looks like we have a base image that we need to leverage. AWS CLI uses Python, so that's why Python is being specified here. There are extensions. We don't need to necessarily add extensions, but this makes the VS Code experience a lot nicer. From the settings, we have terminal integrated shell Linux. So I guess we're just specifying what the shell command is. It could be what this will run, but I don't think so. Down below, we have our run args. So I assume that these are just like global arguments, or they're like environment variables, but they only run in the space of when they're building the environment. Then down below, we see post create command. So I've never seen post create command, but this is kind of like similar to our Gitpod YAML, where we are adding scripts. So I'm wondering now, does it take a string? Does it take an array? Do we have to build an image, like build pre-builds in order to get that configuration? So there's a few questions there. I am, my GitHub Codespaces environment's launched. The first thing I'm gonna do is fix my theme because I do not like to look at a light screen when I am coding. So I'm gonna go with dark version 2 experimental. Doesn't really matter what it is as long as it's easier to read. And we'll make our way back over to here. Now I know in DevHub or in Codespaces we can set up configurations if we open the command palette. I always forget what the command is for the command palette. If I go down below here, it's Control-Shift-P. And so, you know, if we typed in maybe configure, or we typed in, yeah, right away, it says Codespaces, add a dev container configuration file. I'm just gonna make that a bit larger. So if I click on this, we can create a new configuration file. And we have options of from a predefined container configuration from our Docker Compose YAML. That's kind of cool. I mean, this would probably install what we need, but let's click on this and see what happens. We have backend Flask, React.js. I'll try this one here. Yeah, I'm not finding this particularly useful. Well, let's see what happens. I saw AWS CLI in here, so we type in AWS CLI. What else, what we might need here? Let's just open this for a second here. Can I even see this while I'm doing this? We install, is it just AWS CLI? Can I shrink this for a second? I mean, that's all we're installing. So we'll go back over to the command palette. We'll go here. We will create a new configuration. I'm going to do from Docker Compose YAML. We'll do backend Flask. We'll type in AWS CLI here. Checkbox that on, and I'll say OK. Keep defaults because I don't know what that is. And it's going to add that file for me. So it made a new folder called dev container. I'm sure we could have done this all manually. Then we have a Docker Compose file in here, which is not really what we want. I mean, that's interesting, but I'm going to go ahead and delete this file. And we're going to look here and see what it's done. So we have the name. I'm going to change this to something else. So we'll just say CRUD configuration. And I just noticed I don't have Vim keys. That's going to drive me crazy. Don't install Vim if you aren't a Vim user, but I'm going to install it because I cannot make my way around an environment without Vim. Okay, there we go. That's a lot better. List if you have more than one Docker Compose file. So I think the thing is that I guess it was using, instead of a Docker file image, it was, because we see in here that it's specifying a particular image as the base image. And the thing is that all we need to work on this app, at least locally for the time being, is to have Docker being able to run. So we might not need a Docker image at all. Whatever base image it might inherit from is what we'll use. The service property is the name of the service. We don't care about this. The optional workspace folder is the VS Code path that should open by default when connected. Okay, that is true. That probably already happens by default. Features, AWS CLI. So features to add to the dev container, forward ports. So we're starting to see things that are a little bit easier. I thought we would have to write a post create command, but it looks like what they have is they already have a bunch of features installed. So we'll go here and open this up. Take a look. So this table contains all official and community-supported dev container features known at the time of crawling for each registered collection. And so the AWS CLI is clearly there, so that makes our lives a lot easier. There is ones for Docker, like we have Docker in Docker, which could be something we want. Docker outside of Docker. One of these might matter. Git should already be there. You can see things like Python, stuff like that. And you can specify a version. Now, this version might not necessarily mean version 1 of Python. It just means version 1 of this library. So we'll open that up. We'd have to go down here and take a look at what it's doing. So I guess this is a feature. All it is a install sh script. Okay. Again, not an expert in Codespaces, but you can see it's not too hard for me, at least, to go through and figure this out. Looks like you can specify the version of Python, so that's probably an argument that you can pass along. So you'd probably go here and say, I would like version 3.7 or something like that. And we have Ruby and other things like that. So for the AWS CLI, that's the easiest thing that we do need to get started with. So there's that. I'm going to just copy and paste this up here for a second. Forward ports is something we might want to do. Uncomment the next line if you want to start specified services in your Docker Compose config. I mean, yes, we do want, it'd be nice to have things that would auto start, but just to try to keep this similar to the other project, I'd rather just right click and start it manually. So we'll take this out here. Shutdown actions, uncomment this line if you need to keep your container running after VS Code shuts down. I don't. Uncomment this next line to run commands after the container is created. This is where I thought we'd have to do it, but we'll just take that out. We don't need that. Configure the tool's specific properties. We might want to do that because that's where we are going to customize the UI or the things that are installed. So right here, I do not see Docker installed. Right. I wonder if we can easily add this. Install in Codespaces, add to dev container JSON, so I'll do that. We'll go back over here. So that's been added there now. What are the things that we would want to have by default here? Probably Python. Python for VS Code. It has like this extension is no longer in use, so we go here, and I'm going to go and add the dev container to the JSON. We can go look up JavaScript. This is code snippets. I'm just looking for syntax highlighting. We probably get that for free. What about React? Extensions for this. I don't know if we need that. So anyway, we definitely want the Docker. We definitely want the Python. If I go over to our extensions, I want to make sure if they're installed or not. So we'll go here and I will go here. Now I've added them here, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are installed. I think we'd have to stop and restart this environment for them to take effect. For forward ports, use forward ports to make a list of ports inside the container available locally. We definitely want to forward ports. We'll look that up here. So here we have local OS, container. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll figure that out here in a moment. So what I'm going to do is commit the dev container. So add the dev container. And you know, before I do this, I should really fork this and go git checkout -b week 2 Codespaces. Okay. And we'll go ahead and we will add dev container JSON file, commit that. We'll push that to our new branch. It might complain because the branch does not exist. Did it push? If we do not trust it, we'll double check our repository here. I'm going to give this a hard refresh. We're going to make our way over to this branch here, make sure that file is included. So there is a .dev container folder with that there. So now the next trick is to restart this environment from scratch, because we can close this environment and it probably will shut down after a certain amount of time, but that doesn't necessarily mean the stuff will be installed. So like we want to see Docker installed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close out this tab and I'm going to go back over here and we'll go to Codespaces. And you can see that this is still active. So one thing I want to know is like, when does Codespaces turn off? Because it's still active after 30 minutes. So probably it's a good habit to, when you're done, is to manually stop it, I would think. So that should stop that environment. I'm not sure how fast it takes for it to stop. It looks like it's stopped. I'm going to go here and we'll say open in Visual Studio Code. Open the browser. I was just thinking about that for a moment because if we did VS Code, it'd probably open up locally. What I'm hoping is for the environment to start from scratch, or at least load that some of those configurations in. Because of the nature of how Codespaces work, it does not work the same way as Gitpod. I can't expect it to be from a ephemeral state, but since it loads a Docker image as a base thing, I almost wonder how it might be different from that sense. Not as fast as Gitpod, but hey, if it's free, it's free. Okay, so remember that we put these in here and we never installed them, so I'm trying to see if these are going to appear. Okay, so I go here, still not installed. All right, so the question is why is that not working? It's because this is, in my mind, a virtual machine. You shut it down, you start it up, it's in the same state as you left it. So that isn't very useful for us. I'm going to click back here. We're going to go to our Codespaces, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the machine. And then I'm going to go here and delete the machine, and we'll say okay. Because I just think that there's really no way to expect it to start from like an empty state like Gitpod. What we'll have to do is literally create a new workspace. If there's a more efficient way to do this, I certainly don't know what it is, but in my mind, this is how it probably has to work. So here it's building an image, it's building a container. We'll have to give it a moment here. I'll see you back here when this is done building, okay? Okay, so after waiting a little while, and that's what I mean when I say Codespaces is a little bit slower than Gitpod, It looks like we lost our theming. That's kind of getting annoying. How to persist theme for GitHub Codespaces. Maybe we can write it here. So how to add VS Code theme to dev container for GitHub Codespaces. Okay, so apparently it goes into extensions because we could surely use that. If I go over here, I wonder if there's a way I can just add it. We go into themes here. It's themes, right? Color theme. Browse additional color themes. What's the name of it? So I'm just going to have to take, I guess, the Dracula theme because it seems like the only way I'm going to get it. We'll go back over to our dev container here, and I'm going to paste that in here. So now we have Docker. So Docker is there, which is great. I'm noticing, I'm not sure if it's going to persist the font size. So that's another thing I want to know is, we'll go up here, how to add font size terminal to dev container JSON, see if we can configure that as well. I'm not sure if it would let us do that. Okay, that looks good too. Not sure exactly why we have to set it as this. Maybe it might not be the default one. Do we need to set, oh, it's updating the old one. That's why we're getting all that additional information. So we'll go here and I'm gonna go back over to here. It was under settings. Settings. We don't have a settings. I removed it. Hold on. I'm noticing here, like we have extensions here, but this one says customization VS Code extensions. And for this one, it's just at the top level. So which is it? Interesting. I'm going to go over to, we'll type in GitHub Codespaces schema. And that might help us determine what the correct thing is. Or we could say dev container JSON schema. That might help better. Specification. So I'm just trying to find settings here. Oh boy. I guess we're just gonna have to play around with it and find out. Worst case, I'll have to do a bit of reading. Not that that's a big deal for me. We'll go back down here, but we are seeing some inconsistencies with what ChatGPT is reporting and what it's expecting. Because now I don't know if settings should be in line with extensions in the VS Code. It almost seems like it should, right? If we go settings here like this. I've lost my Vim commands. I definitely want that to persist, so we'll go over here. Again, I use Vim. You do not have to use Vim. It is very hard to use. Do not use it unless you know it. Add to the dev container JSON file. There it is. I'm going to go here and say 20 font. I'm going to go back over here, and we will take the last command here. This is font size of terminal. Font size of editor. See if that picks up. Editor font size. Okay, we'll copy that. Just because ChatGPT or these things output them, you have to know what you're looking at. I have more confidence, so I'm very comfortable as to what to choose from here. This is probably supposed to be curlies, not square braces. Okay, so hopefully what this will do is start us with larger fonts, darker colors. I'll have Vim by default, which will make my life a lot easier. We can see we have features up there. We'll go ahead here and update our dev container JSON. Is there any way to run dev container JSON again? You can perform a rebuild in Visual Studio Code. Access the VS Code command palette and type in rebuild. Let's try that out. Maybe that'll save us some time. What was it? Control-Shift-P. There it is. So rebuild. I'm going to sync these before we do that. I don't trust it, so I'll do a git push. Says it's up to date. I'm going to double check. I don't want to waste time, so I want to make sure that code is there. We'll go into dev container. We'll scroll on down. All the settings are there. We'll try Control-Shift-P to bring up the command palette. We'll type in rebuild, and we'll do a full rebuild. Rebuilding recreates the code space or code, and any current changes will be preserved, but all the currently cached images, etc., etc. So we'll do that, and we'll see what that does. Brings us back to the step. So saves us a bit of time from deleting and creating the new workspace, but basically that is looking what it does. So I'll be back here in a moment. All right, so after waiting forever for that to rebuild, forever and ever, we're back in our code spaces. It looks like our font has not taken effect, which is a bit frustrating here. But let's see, is my Vim keys on? No. What is installed here? Let's go take a look here on the left-hand side. Docker's there. Go to extensions. We'll go to Vim. Says it's installed. Okay, font sizes. I mean, this is bigger, right? I think this is larger, so that's working. I mean, this might be 14 size font. I don't know. But our theme is still not appearing. Did I get this right? Did I put this in the right place for the theme? We typed it in ChatGPT, right? Yeah, here, extensions. Did we put this in the right place? Okay, GitHub Codespaces, dev container for themes. Color theme, VS Code. So they say, open the container configuration file, workbench config theme, Visual Studio Lite. So that could be an option as well. Let's see, go down below here. So we'll go ahead and grab this command and see what this is all about. Let's say dev container. Dev container. I can't seem to spell anything right these days. So this is under settings. Okay. Okay, well, I don't know why the other one did not take effect, but what we'll do is go over here. I mean, it makes more sense as a settings and extensions. I don't know why this would be here, because this would be extensions you install on the left-hand side, so this doesn't make any sense. We'll go down below here, and I will paste in workbench color theme, I suppose. And why is my Vim not working? If I disable it and reload required. Oh, for frick's sakes. Okay, our environment's still here. I thought we lost everything. That was a bit of a headache. It is just not taking effect. That's a bummer for me. I'm going to go down below here, and we are going to look at themes again. So we'll go color theme. I want maybe this one here. I'm just trying to get the name of it. I know these show up in the configuration, so maybe if we type in workbench theme or, yeah, here. I guess that's the same way of finding it. I'll go and set it as that. I want to actually see the JSON settings. So I went here to the wheel, right? I click this. I said copy the, whoops, copy this here. We'll go down below. We'll paste this in here. We'll say allow. And now we have exactly what it is that we need. So we'll do that. I'll put a comma here, paste that in here. This is complaining. Oh, because we have at the top here, we'll take that out. And that's Bako, who's in the background. I didn't put my stuff to mute on here, so I'm getting alerts that I don't need. We'll close that out. I'll just set myself to do not disturb. There we go. Okay, so I'm hoping that that takes effect. So we'll go here, we'll say add. And it also, I wonder if it failed because of that extension in between. Maybe it'll load this time around, I don't know. Should use dark theme setting. Commit that. Just to make sure that we know that that works, is I'm going to go down below here. No, I don't want to pull often. I'm going to go and change the theme back to something light because I want to see if we rebuild this, if it will appear. Control-Shift-P, we'll do rebuild. We'll do a full rebuild of the entire, full rebuild container. Rebuild container. We want to do full rebuild. Your code and any current changes will be preserved, but all your currently cached images will be cleared. Your code space will be rebuilt using the your working directory's dev container. So let's go ahead and rebuild that. I'm going to pause. I'll be back here when it's done. Okay, we are back, and hey, look, our fonts are the size that we want them to be. Still, VS Code is not working for some reason for me. I'm not sure why. Maybe it has to do with new files, but for me, that is a frustrating experience. I guess I would just have to go to Vim here and maybe uninstall, install it again. I'll go back over here. Yeah, I don't know why it's not letting me do Vim, but that's my problem, not yours. I'll have to figure it out, but most of it looks like it works. Now the question is, will it run my container? Also, we need to get our AWS CLI installed, so I'm going to go here and just see if AWS is installed. So do we have the CLI? It looks like it is working. The following arguments are required command. I'm also kind of curious what version it's running. Now the thing is that if we're using AWS CLI, because we use this feature one, it might not be installing the latest version. So that is something that might really matter to us. AWS CLI current version. And they might have the documentation somewhere here. So we have 2, but like, what is it? Here it says 2.10, so it seems like we're up to date. I really don't like using these prepackaged ones, but if they keep them up to date, it's okay. 2.10.3 seems like it's the latest. So I don't think that we're going to have any issues there. Now, I do like to have VS Code set up with parameters, but I guess the next thing is to store some secrets, because in order to use VS Code, if I do AWS STS call, that probably won't do anything. STS get caller identity. And I realize that's cutting off on the screen, so I will just do this here. So you can at least see it. So AWS STS get caller identity. Hit enter. It should complain because we don't have credentials in here. That's totally fine. So we need to get those credentials installed. I think that if we go to our command palette, so that could be Control-Shift-P or click this here, and we've typed in Codespaces. We have manage user secrets. So if I go here, I can add a secret. I did this the other day where I added it to this one, but we need to add our AWS credentials. It seems like, I'm not sure if these are scoped based on workspace or across everything. So if we go to manage on GitHub, it might show us some additional options here. So here we can probably just create them manually, which seems a lot easier. I'm not sure if it lets us specify per repository. It seems like it's for our entire account. So that might be kind of annoying if you're working on multiple projects. You might want to consider that. Automatically install a dot file. So Codespaces can automatically install your dot files from every codespace. But you probably don't want to necessarily just drop a file in there. Well, it says it would automatically do this, so we could checkbox that on. I'm not sure if I like that idea. I'm not sure if I like that idea. So we will create some new secrets here. So I'll go here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on new secret. And so I need to put in our AWS credentials. So AWS nvars. So we know what they are. We'll go over here, scroll on down. This will be 1. Where are we? Here. Oh, you can specify for the repository. So I can go AWS CRUD bootcamp. I'm going to generate new credentials here because I want to show you how that works. So I'm just doing this off screen. I'm logging into my AWS account. So just give me a moment. AWS bootcamp, etc. Andrew Brown. And I'm going to have to, oh no, it might be easy to get into Dashlane here today. I'm just, again, doing this off screen here. Copy password. I go here, sign in. I have to do MFA on my phone, as per usual. We'll go here. Okay, and so now I'm logging into my AWS account. I'm going to make my way over to IAM. And from IAM, we'll go to our users. I have my own account here. I have security credentials. I have this key, which has been around for 8 days. And I really don't mind just killing it because I'm always doing this all the time. So I'll just go ahead and delete this one. I've been rotating these out like crazy. Can I enter the access key? Deactivate. Delete. I'm going to create a new access key. All this stuff doesn't matter. Ignore it. Just go down below here and hit next, hit create. I really hate that UI. Whoever designs UI at AWS, they really need to do better at their job. We're going to go here, and I want to go to the repository for this. So this is going to be AWS Bootcamp. I want to make sure that I select my personal one. And so that will be the access key. And we'll add a new secret here. I'm going to go to this one here, and we will paste that in. I want my secret. And we'll paste that on in there. Okay. And we will again select the repository. So I will type it in here. And I will add this here. I will make another new secret here. And I will now set the AWS default environment. Yours could be whatever it is that you need it to be. US East 1 is what I usually recommend. CA Central is what I'm using. Because I am in Canada, I'm going to make sure I spelt that correctly. I'm going to put it into Google, see what I get back for AWS. Yep, that's right. Sometimes I spell it wrong, so it's always good to double check to save yourself some trouble down the road. AWS Bootcamp, we'll go here. I will go ahead and create that. And so now I have those 3 values set. Now there's secrets, and these are encrypted, but these aren't the same thing as environment variables, which might have non-sensitive values. It says these secrets have changed, reload to reply. So I'm hoping that this is going to load into the environment. We'll give it a moment here to load. I'm going to assume that those are being passed as environment variables. So now that I'm in here, I'm going to do env grep, and we'll type in AWS. We can see that they are set correctly, so that is in good shape. If you hear chains and stuff in the background, that is Bako, who usually is whispering in my ears. He's getting the snowblower out to blow snow, because there's a lot of snow. You might have saw him put that in the message earlier in the video, that he was going to go out and snowblow. So we need to add those environment variables. It can load a .env file. I'm not sure what is the best way to do it. I'm going to go back to the command palette. I'm going to double check what our options are. It seems like, I'm not sure. So we'll say add nvars to dev container. We can go here. They are adding them. Container environment, remote environment. So it looks like, what's the difference? You can set environment variables in your container without alternating the container image by using one of the options below. So I guess when they say dev container, the container is really talking about the environment, even though we know that this is kind of like a virtual machine or something like that. But then there's remote environments, so not really the same thing of what I'm thinking here. If you have a large number of environment variables you need to set, you can use the .env instead. Okay. So Docker file or image for dev container and add the path to this. So yeah, we have a few different options here: container env, remote env, but which is the correct one is what I'm not sure. So we'll type in run args, because we saw run args here in examples, and it makes me think that maybe that is how they are set, but these look like flags. So now I don't think that's the case. I feel like these are the arguments to be used when running the container. So I'm going to go over here and say set an environment variable in the... This is where I find GitHub Codespaces confusing, is that dev container specification and not having great information around it, having to really piece things together. Gitpod is extremely straightforward. Set an environment variable in the dev container. Set an example of an environment variable in dev container JSON for GitHub Codespaces. Okay, let's see what it comes back with. So here it says to set an environment variable, you can add remote for property to your dev container. So which one is it? I guess we'll go with this one. If it works, it works. Sometimes, you know, we don't 100% know why. It might require more research, but we need something working for the time being. And if somebody tells me it's wrong, we will adjust from there. I'm not sure what level it should be at. Probably this one, so I'll put it here. The reason we want this is to set up... We want to set this up to use it was CLI auto prompt or autocomplete here. I want this page here. I know that it's down below here, and if we go into nvars here, this is the one I want on partial. So I'll go ahead and grab that code. We'll go back. We'll paste this in here. We'll grab this one, we'll paste that in, we'll grab this one, we'll paste that in. And I'm hoping that this will turn on partial. So this is one way for us to set our environment variables at this level for the developer environment, not necessarily the containers. I'm gonna go here, I'll add this, a update, add an nvar. Now you might hear the snowblower in the background. It's pretty loud here. I'll turn it around if you want to hear it. Don't know if you can hear it, but it's running. And I'm going to go ahead and do commit and sync these changes. We'll say OK. I really don't like that message. I'm always double checking here to make sure my changes are persisting. There it is. What we are going to do is rebuild. So we'll do a rebuild. Maybe we don't have to do a full rebuild. We'll just say rebuild without the full. We just want that nvar to take place. And hopefully this is faster than the full rebuild, which takes forever. I literally sit on my phone for like 5 to 10 minutes. But I'll see you back here in a moment. I'm just going to pause. All right, so we didn't do a full rebuild, and that made things a lot faster, but we'll see if that environment variable is persisting. So I'm going to drag this over here so you can see, because I know I'm blocking part of the screen. Type in env, we'll go type in AWS, grep AWS. What do we get? The on partial is there. So if I type in AWS, we should get the prompt as we normally would. And I'm going to type in STS, get caller identity. Hit enter. There we go. So that is working. Now the next question, can we get the app working? We did install Docker on the left-hand side as an extension. I'm hoping that we can go here, right-click, go compose up. Fingers crossed that it will work. The next question will be about the ports. So it says no forward ports. So you can see this is a little bit different than Gitpod, where you have to set up some port forwarding. So we will find out what happens when we start this. It'd be really nice if Docker Compose does it for us, but we'll find out here in a moment. So we'll give it a moment to get built here, and I'll be back here in a second, just so you don't have to listen to the snowblower. Okay, so let's go over here. We don't have any open ports. The question is, how do we access this thing? So that is next. Oh, Code Whisperer. That sounds like fun. So I guess the question is, like, how do we expose that information? I would assume we'd have to do. Oh, I didn't touch anything. I didn't touch anything. Okay, it just happened on its own. At least I think it did. And so we can see it's running on 4567. We will open in the browser. I really thought it'd have to do something there. It says not found. The request URL is not found on the server. Okay, we know that the root one doesn't work, so we'll type in this in, so it works. It's interesting to see that the error message is different here. I'm pretty sure it's different from what we saw. Like, this is still a 404, but Gitpod, we were doing it was slightly different. The visibility is set to private. I'm not sure. Oh, we can go over here and then change it to public visibility. That might matter for service-to-service communication. That's interesting. Change port protocol. You think it'd be all on HTTPS, is it not? Oh, it's over here, HTTPS. Okay, so if we go over here and we check our containers, we can see probably only the one running. Yeah, and we know why this one's not working. We didn't do the npm install. So if we go back over to our first tab here, I'm just going to collapse this, do ls. We will go in front-end React. We'll type in npm install. I know it's cut off on the screen, but you know what an npm install looks like. It's npm install like that. I don't even know why I don't just do this. That way all the commands will always show up. If I drag my line out here, I'll probably do this now in the future, so our lives are a little bit easier. We'll give it a moment there. Jupyter Notebooks, that's cool. And once that is done, great. We can go over to here. We will right click, we will start. Oops, I didn't mean to start. I didn't mean to run start. I just meant to do a Docker compose up. I mean, we possibly could just start that one individually. There's no reason why we have to, well, there might be a reason why. But anyway, we'll do up here. And we'll wait for the stuff to start up. Okay, I'll be back here in a second. All right, so let's make our way over to the ports. And oh, look, they're both open here. The lights are on, though. That is great. Now, they're both set to private. The question is, can they communicate with each other? That's what we're going to find out here. We want to open this up in the browser. So this is, which one was that? Port 4567. We want to do the port 3000 and see what happens. It's connecting to the forwarding port. And notice that there is no data. If we go here and inspect, I bet it's because they're private. We go down below. What error are we going to get? Cores, which is fine. We go to our network tab. We'll check out here. We might have to refresh to see the results because it doesn't always show up. And notice it says here, look, we're on the home and it says status failed. And the error is, yeah, it's not letting us drag the whole thing up. If we click into it, we should see the response here somewhere. Not the easiest way to look at it, but it says error name not resolved. This is really important for you to check the status. There's a difference between cores, between 200 and 404 and stuff, but this endpoint that we're trying to hit is not showing cores, it's showing error name not resolved. It cannot resolve to the name that it is talking to. Now, don't know exactly what that means, but I know that these are private, and if we probably set them to public, that will resolve the issue. So we'll say public for probably the back end. We probably don't even have to do it for the front end. We'll do that, and that might resolve our issue. So go back over here. Okay, we'll refresh, inspect. It's still saying that this is not resolving. Oh, you know what it is? Probably our environment variable. So if we go into our Docker Compose file, these are set up for this. And that is not the address of Codespaces. Codespaces is different from GitHub, Gitpod. It looks different. So we need to change that. Now, I'm almost certain that in our Discord, somebody has solved it for us. So I'm going to go find the solution. I'll be back here in a second. Okay, so I just scrolled up and Mark has provided this as the example for this. In some cases, wants to run on Codespaces. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. This is going to be super useful. Mark, when you get your homework ready, you're definitely getting bonus points for saving me some trouble here. We'll make our way back over to here, and we will go into here. And so now we have these environment variables we want to set. So we will go here and paste that in here. And my Vim commands are not working. because Codespaces is lame. And I will go down below here and cut this out. And I will place this in here. Now, I might want to switch between these two environments. So what I'm going to do is just comment out the other one to make my life a little bit easier. This one is Github. This one is Codespaces. There's probably some other way we could also do this, but this is probably the easiest way for us to manage both. So now I don't have to get rid of Codespaces. I could keep both, or like Github. I'm going to go ahead and commit this code. So we'll say here, and we'll update Codespaces, or update n bars to use Codespaces. We'll do this, we'll commit it, we'll sync it. I'll say okay. I'll go back over here. We'll do Docker compose up. We'll go back to our terminal. We will wait for this to finish building, going up, and we'll test it here in a second. All right, so we've restarted our environment up here. We'll go to our ports. We have one set as public, one set as private. I'm gonna go back and change that to private because we wanna see what happens if they're both private. We'll throw a different error. Now it makes sense why it said error name not resolved, because it was going to somewhere that doesn't exist. So we'll go back over to here. I'm gonna open up our inspector again. We will go ahead and refresh. I'm gonna assume the address is the same. I don't think that they change it when you start and stop it. We'll go to our network tab. We'll take a look at what it says. Not seeing any information here. I'll give it another hard refresh. Okay, I do not trust that. We will close that. We will go back over here. Maybe it does change the address each time. And we'll open this in the browser. It says 503 unavailable. Now, it didn't say that before. So what we'll do is go to our terminal. We'll go up. And this is the front end. So we will go over to our Docker container. Oh, it's not running. What happened? Okay. We did change the nvar, so it could have something to do with that. Right? Oh, now it's running. Oh, okay. Refresh it now. Whatever. You just got to be a bit patient and watch stuff for that. We'll go back over to here and inspect again. What does it say? We go over here, we give it a refresh. Now we get a CORS issue. Okay, we're getting into a better place. So remember, the last one was an error named server. This one is CORS. Just remember that sometimes additional errors are being thrown, like the manifest file that is not related to the endpoint that we're looking. Look at what you're doing. So for this, I believe that it's because this is private. We will right-click here, and we will change the port visibility to be public. I don't think we have to change this one to be public. We refresh here. There we go. Okay. So yeah, it looks like we have all of everything that we need. The only thing that we didn't do is like set up some defaults. So I know in our git pod YAML file, we go down here. Maybe not in this one, but I thought we did it somewhere where we might have done an npm install when we first launched it up. These ports we did not set. It doesn't really seem to matter if we set them open here. I'm not too worried about it. If you were running the daemon for X-Ray, it probably would also open the port there as well. But yeah, that's everything that you needed to know. So what I'm going to do is go over to commits, wherever that is. Where are you, GitHub? Nope. Commits, where are you? Here. Looks like this is all up to date. I'm going to go ahead and shut down this environment. Is there a way to do it from here? No. But we can go to my Codespaces. We haven't gone there yet. I'm kind of curious what we see here. Great. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now that I'm not using this right now, I'm going to stop the Codespaces because you don't want it to run for 30 minutes. You just want to stop it right after that. So yeah, if we go back over here, you can find my configuration over in this branch called week 2 Codespaces. So there you go. That's your crash course in Codespaces. Ciao.